right? So we have from all over the place. There's HR,
Lawyers, librarians.
lawyers and investigators. How about that on the topic of psychological safety, right? How
Yeah,
relevant.
totally.
And leadership and development. So for a librarian, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Exciting.
quality assurance software.
Great
Great. Keep them
variety.
coming. Keep them coming, guys.
So we'll keep monitoring the chat, and we'll use the chat as a channel to keep this two-way communication today. So, but I think we'll get started. What do you think?
Yeah, let's get started. Yeah. Do you want to intro us, Terry, and we'll take it?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list here, which is awesome. Hello, I'm Terry with WorkTango, and today's leadership training webinar is on creating psychological safety within your teams, which is so important. We're really excited to partner with our friends at Culture Crafters. We have Anya and Angela, who will introduce themselves in a minute. And with that, I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. Thank you, WorkTango. Love working with you guys. It's been great. I will share my desktop and start the play. So welcome. I'm Anya Soto. I'm a founder of Culture Crafters. We're a global training company, and I think creating psychological safety is one of my favorite topics. When I go in as a consultant, we always look, I feel like this is the foundation of culture. If we don't have that, we don't have culture, really, or our culture sucks. How do we consciously create a culture where people feel safe to speak up? When people feel safe, like I'm overwhelmed, I can't take it on, instead of checking out and leaving our company. Do people feel safe to give each other feedback, to be candid, or do we have a culture of shame, blame, and gossip? So creating psychological safety is like number one. So if you're here with us or you're listening to the recording, I really want to invite you to participate in the chat, to share with us your ideas, and we will build some tools and tips for you. Where do you even start? Because that's the question people ask me, like, where do you start building a culture, and how do you start with psychological safety? So that's me. I'm gonna move it to Angela, my co-facilitator today.
Yes, and I am Angela Migliaccio, and I am a consultant for Culture Crafters with years of experience in business and leadership. Across many industries, and many of those I recognize they're in your role, from insurance to high tech and software development. That's actually my original DNA. High tech, and then kind of moved more into a leadership consultant role. For me, psychological safety, when you see their leadership junkie, like Anya said, is that bedrock of leadership. I am always very curious about what makes people perform at their best, what creates those conditions so that they can thrive. And with that, researching that, I really found this psychological safety as that key element, that secret sauce. So that's my passion behind this topic.
Awesome. So especially now, right, we're creating all these webinars to help WorkTango with the crisis that we're all experiencing, the pandemic. A lot of, most companies moved to work remotely. A lot of companies moved and they're not ready and they're not prepared. So this is why we're going to talk a little bit about, especially remotely, how do you create psychological safety and trust? And what's the difference? Stay tuned. What's the difference between psychological safety and trust? So on our agenda today, we will talk about, as I said, psychological safety and trust, the difference between the two. How do you measure if you have psychological safety on your team? How do you even know? And then what are some tools to start creating? And something Angela and I, we talked a lot about creating this webinar, because like we're trying to pack so much in 60 minutes. And what are the tools? Where do you start? And what are the tools that psychological safety is never permanent? It's like authenticity. You can't say someone is like, I'm an authentic person. It's moment by moment by moment. You're choosing to be authentic. Same with psychological safety. We either create it or we take it away. And one comment can take that away. So we're always in the process of building it for teams.
And like we said, help us keep this relevant for you. It's really hard to customize such a wide topic in 60 minutes for many people. And so just help us really keep us in within those landlines that we really want to create for you.
Totally. So here's our first question. We said we're going to co-create it with you. How would you define, in your own words, psychological safety? Put it in the chat. We want to hear from people.
Let me emphasize in your own words. So we know what Google would say about it. We have a definition later, but for you, how would you describe this concept?
Mm-hmm.
Nancy says, I know that I can trust the people I am associating with. Yeah. Very insightful. Steve said, freedom to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Feeling safe mentally. Big believer of mental health and to ensure you take care of yourself.
Yes.
Being vulnerable. Yes, Adele. And then people were like, what is vulnerability? How many times do I need to cry?
To speak our language.
Yeah, know that your manager and team have your back. Totally.
Yes.
I love that. That's it. Like, I know that they got my back. Those are my people. I'll give you an example. As you're typing, keep putting it in the chat. Yesterday, we did a 2-hour skills lab for another company where they were practicing actually giving feedback. One sentence, the way the woman phrased it, really put another person on the defensive. And all she said was, hey, there's some people who approached me and brought it to my attention about you. And thank God it was a practice lab where the guy said, okay, the impact your words had on me is that people are like gang up on me. Like, people are going behind my back. People are not have conversation with me. That one sentence, instead of my experience about you, that people come to me to talk about you, totally ruined psychological safety. And that guy said, and it was practice, right? It's a role play. But he's like, when someone says that to me, I feel like people don't have my back. They go behind my back.
I think that there is a theme from all the input that we're getting in the chat, Anya, is really this being yourself, feeling free, feeling safe, feeling authentic, right, with that expression, which is always a challenge, as we understand, in a workplace, in a work environment. How much can I be myself? How much is too much, right? There's always that check. And even more so these days with COVID-19, social distancing, how that plays a part in creating or destroying the psychological safety of individuals. So we'll really keep it to the moment that we're all living in.
Yeah, I love that, Nurin said, being free to air your thoughts and feelings in a space where you can trust whom you're sharing with. So interesting part about psychological safety, again, I like to talk as a culture consultant, like every team has its own subculture. And in every subculture, there might be things that are actually okay and things that are not okay. Maybe it's okay to actually talk about a personal life and we feel all so connected, but it's not okay to give candid feedback. Maybe it's okay to propose new ideas, but not okay to admit mistakes. So they're like, there's some things that are okay and create psychological safety, and there are others that are still not okay on your team. So like identifying what's okay and what's not. Where do we feel safe and where do we not feel safe?
Yeah.
So let's go on.
So here's the definition. Like I said, if you Google it, this is one of the definitions that you find from the researcher of psychological safety. She is a Harvard Business School professor and spent decades researching psychological safety and what makes people thrive and perform at their best. And so you can see here the belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Right? This is the team where I can express and say something even if it's confrontational because my colleague or my manager has just said the opposite. So that is that key component of those teams.
I love that definition. And you all have talked about it in the chat.
Yeah.
It's being able to speak up, being able to share your thoughts. So we're going to run a little poll for people who are here on the call right now. And remember, we talked about one of the objectives were, how do you know when you have psychological safety on your team? So I'm going to run a poll. Hopefully you can see it on your screen. There are 40 people on this call right now. So I want you to choose one and we'll speak to one. You know you have psychological safety when people in a team always agree with each other and give each other unconditional support. If you make a mistake, and you can choose as many as you want. If you make a mistake on this team, it's not often held against you. Performance standards are lower. There's an anything goes type of approach. People in a team can take risks, bring up tough issues. And the last one, psychological safety and trust are the same. There's the word missing. They are the same, they're interchangeable.
I actually can
that?
see it, Anya, are interchangeable concepts. So it shows on my end, yeah.
Okay.
So take your time, go through this, and how many apply? How many you think are correct? We're gonna test.
Not all of them will give you.
There's some tricky things in there.
Oh, wow. I see like 96% of people in the same team can take risks to bring up tough issues with the whole team. Okay, keep them coming. I see 26 people have responded. We still have another 14, and I will share with you the results. Okay, about 27 people voted. Do you think we can share, Angela?
Let's give it another few seconds.
Okay. 28.
Some of these definitions require some thinking.
I see some people are just joining. We're doing a poll on the screen, so feel free to read through replies and choose one. You know you have psychological safety when. Okay. I'm gonna end the poll now and share results with all of you guys so you can see.
Okay. We have definitely a winner there, right? Is that the red one?
Yeah.
People in the team.
28 participated, yeah.
20 overall, but 96% picked that one, correct? People in the team can take risks and bring up tough issues with the whole team. And you absolutely, yes, you got it correct. That was the truth of the psychological safety. Let's see where they kind of maybe got confused.
So one person thinks people in the team always agree with each other and give each other unconditional support. So that's kind of like a tricky one, right?
Yeah.
It's like unconditional support, yes. Always agree with each other? No. But again, do we have the safety to disagree? Do I trust that if I disagree with you, you'll still support me? You'll still respect me? Maybe you don't agree with me, I don't agree with you, but can we still respect each other and support each other?
Correct. So the research behind psychological safety and where that comes from, the study done at Google for 2 years, so with over 180 teams, in conjunction with Carnegie Mellon, has found that it's not important the who is together, but what's important is the how they work. And so they don't have to agree. They can have they will have different opinion, but psychological safety makes it okay to express their opinion, to go against that person that I respect, that he is my senior, but at the same time, I think my idea is valid and I'm gonna speak up. So
it's actually a red flag where people always agree with each other. That's the first red flag. It's like if people on the team are like, yeah, me too. It's like, and especially if you are in a position of power. If people don't question, don't challenge your ideas, you most likely don't have the safety. Well, I guess, and psychological safety and trust. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, I just want to repoint,
Yeah.
the only one, yes, so just that 4% there, performance standards are lower, that's not, right? It's like almost like, say, agile and agile methodology is the wild, wild west. No, it's a way to interact with the standards, with principles, with practices. So absolutely it's not, we were tricking you. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Awesome.
Oh, yes, let's talk about psychological safety and trust, because there was a question there. Yeah.
We have a slide on this. Should we talk about it now, or we'll move?
Yeah, let's go back to the poll. The last one was psychological safety and trust are interchangeable, and I saw some of you pick that one. We will talk more about this. They actually are not. That was a tricky one that we put in there so that we could make the point, although they have a lot in common. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think even as facilitator trainers, we do use them. I find like we often use them interchangeably. Even in the description of this workshop, we're going to talk about creating psychological safety and trust.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing, but they are, yeah. You need both.
So we're going to go over that difference in shortly.
So here's another tricky question that we have for you. And again, because you all come from different industries and experiences, I want you to feel as an expert. What do you think are the consequences of not speaking up about mistakes, concerns, and feedback? And maybe you have experience with it. We will share, Angela and I will share with you a couple of our own experiences and with large companies. What do you know? What are some potential consequences of not speaking up, especially about mistakes and concerns?
Yeah. Does that look like in your industry, in your company, in your team? No innovation, absolutely. Things will stay the same and nobody will say, but why are we doing this? Just total complacency.
Yeah, staff gets frustrated. Yeah, the frustration grows, the blame grows, and it's like people are not having tough conversations, honest conversations.
Poor morale, status quo, same old. Yeah.
Repeat of behavior.
Yes.
Amanda said lack of accountability.
Yeah, and actually an expansion of that behavior, right? It will actually explode and pervade from the rest of the team because they think, that's an okay thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it's like the toxicity grows. We guys think that it's actually, it gets worse. It doesn't get better. It's like a virus. Once it gets on your team, and if someone is role modeling that behavior and you accept it, it just keeps growing.
Yeah. Laura said, is it emotionally exhausting? Absolutely. It's like it's being always in that alert mode, in that fight or flight, right? You're going to preservation, you lose your best abilities, cognitive abilities to create, to innovate. Yeah.
We always say like that shame, right? The shame, you cannot be creative. Like so many companies are now talking about like, I want people to take responsibility. I want them to take accountability, especially now with COVID-19. I hear it from our clients all the time. It's like, they send me email about everything. They cannot problem solve. They're so used that I'm always available. I'm always on site in the office. And we say, if people don't have safety, they will not take risk. They will only take direction. Yeah. If people, listen to this, if people don't feel safe to take a risk, they will only take direction. They will not take responsibility.
People leave because they go somewhere else where they can take risk in a safe way. Well, the research shows that the consequences of not having psychological safety are pretty catastrophic. Amy Edmondson came out with an article about this time last year, because FBI opened an investigation. We have a lawyer and investigators in the team here in the webinar. FBI opened an investigation against Boeing for the disasters of the 737 MAX. And what the FBI has found in that investigation was that in the North Carolina factory of one of Boeing's factory, some of the workers knew that this algorithm for that jet had really some catastrophic flaws, and they didn't speak up because they were concerned that they will lose the job or lose the promotion. Whatever the situation was in that factory, did not allow them, support them to raise their hand and say, we may have really problems here down the line. So you see how these are the consequences of teams that don't have psychological safety.
Yeah. Another quick two examples that I want to bring. Wells Fargo, like US bank. Same thing. The standards were not lower, they were very high. They pressured employees to open a ton of accounts. Like, I don't remember the numbers are goals.
Millions.
The goal was of 8 products per customer. They're supposed to open 8 products per customer. People started lying and created 2 million fake accounts and credit cards that costed a company 185 million in statements. And that's what happens when we don't have psychological safety to speak. People will find ways to cheat the system. People find ways to not admit mistakes. Same with Nokia. I mean, everybody, I was just watching the other night, I was watching an old movie from like 2004, and I'm like, oh my God, everybody had a Nokia phone before Apple. The executives knew about Apple, were afraid to share with the engineers. Engineers at Nokia knew that they were not compatible, their technology. Where's Nokia now? Gone. Like, it's not even here. So the consequences, like, yeah, there's blame, there's shame, there's gossip, but for the company overall, they can be very critical consequences.
Yeah. And so, okay, I think they understand, right, how important it is for them and for the world. And so how do you do it? How do you create psychological safety? And here's 3 tools to implement, 3 elements, 3 levers. If that pulled, then you can create a culture of psychological safety. So we're going to go over these 3 with you. And I'll start with setting the stage.
Okay, and so, I want to just say, see, the psychological safety is like this little thing in the middle, like little thing inside the circles.
Was that an eye test? If you passed it.
Psychological safety, but that's how small, and that was my creative thing. It's like, that's how small and fragile it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I failed the eye test. I didn't see that. So the first tool is setting the stage. As the leader of that team, as the supervisor, or even as an individual contributor, setting the stage is where you create a shared identity with the team, where you bring people together, you give them a little bit of structure just to feel safe into the work that they're going to do together, the purpose that they came together for. So you're really creating that cohesive tissue among all the individuals of the team.
Yeah. And I think there's with uncertainty, like, I want to talk about COVID-19, because specifically now it's so important as a leader to voice what's in the space. We talk about it, like, name what you feel. Uncertainty, anxiety, because I think the easiest way to lose credibility and lose that psychological safety is when everybody feels it. They feel the changes coming, they feel the budget, like, everybody knows it. You know that feeling, you know it, you feel it, but the leader is not speaking about it. That's the quickest way to lose credibility. So setting the stage is also about speaking to challenges, speaking to uncertainty, speaking to things that are happening right now.
And also, everybody these days is on Zoom, is on some other sort of video calls. And so the setting the stage, that is that shared identity. You guys are all in the same situation. And so sharing even the stage of what's behind me, what's around me, is there pets on the floor, am I, right? So to have that vulnerability, that humanity, so that you can find that common denominator, that it is for all of us, right? We're at home, there's kids going around our camera, right, that are not on the screen, but they're around us. So it really makes you look human. Yeah, and
And I think as
connect.
a leader, Angela, I keep thinking like, yes, because if you do that, it will give me an okay to do that too.
Yes.
And as a leader, you set the stage, you set the tone.
Yeah.
Then tool number 2 is invite participation. Really difficult to do it online, remotely, especially because before you could just stop by my office. Before we could grab lunch and coffee and we're in a meeting. It's just easy. Now we need to be more intentional. One of the webinars we did, the first webinar was about effective virtual meetings. Go back to it, listen to it. How do you do that? But in this context, with trust, inviting participation means opening up the stage to ask people questions and being very intentional with it. Because when there are like 20 people and you ask questions into the space, it's easy to be like, oh, that's not like they're not asking me. The loud people will say, has every heard been heard? When you ask us, what do you guys think? How should we approach it? What are some ideas? What are some perspectives? Instead of telling people and directing them what to do, how do you invite participation and make sure that you hear from different people?
Yeah. And also ask question like, if there were someone playing a devil's advocate about this idea or go against my idea, what would that person say? Giving them the permission to go against you, saying it's okay, because if you can see some weakness in this idea, in this project, in this plan, that will give us a chance to make it stronger, to make it better.
Yeah, and that's why we hired you. Like we hired you because of your ideas and experience, right? So, and if there, go ahead.
No,
Do you want
I
to say
just
something?
wanted to go over to the third one.
Yeah. Okay, go.
Okay, so the third one is respond productively, which kind of can confuse some people. If there's coaches here, they probably know what that means. For everybody else, it's really acknowledging, now that the person has found the courage to say something, how do you respond to that? Really sets that tone, really gives them the permission to go and take that risk and open up and
Yeah.
speak up. And so the way that you address those interjections or the things that they say is very, very important. That really gives them, it walks the talks, it gives them the idea that you do want to hear, you do care if there's a problem with what I said.
And again, for the practice, it's so important to practice the skills and do it with your team, because one comment can totally ruin psychological safety. Here's an example. Somebody on the team is asking you a question. There's a lot of pressure on you because everybody else is always reading the space, what's safe and what's not safe. Someone asks you a question and a comment from a leader like, wow, I can't believe someone in your role or in your position would ask this type of question. Rest assured, nobody will ever ask another question again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which seems like an innocent response.
And what are the challenges, Anya, now that we're all in this Brady Bunch kind of world, right? Where you may see or not see the person. So that also add extra challenges. And as a leader, you may not be prone to ask for people opinions and call them out. But it actually, research shows that that is what people that are more introverts in your team will need to be able to speak up. Right? And they will feel included, that will feel part of the conversation. They will feel that their opinion counts.
Yeah, and remember we talk about often about like, how do people feel seen? Because everybody wants to be seen for their work. And one of the ways is give them voice. If you can't see them right now, if we're not in the same space, at least give them a voice. So our question in the chat, which one of these three do you feel are most challenging with building trust and psychological safety? Put it in the chat. I just want to kind of get a sense. Is it creating, setting the stage? Is it inviting? Is it responding? Which one is challenging for you? Andrew said, hey, Nokia still makes cell phones and are popular in Europe.
They are
Thanks,
popular in
Andrew.
Europe.
They are. Okay, that's my mistake. I'm going to look into it. And someone from Eastern Europe, I should have known, but everybody I know is on iPhone.
And I see a lot of chats come to the panelists, and if that's your choice, that's okay for us. But I just wanted to point it out if instead you meant it for everybody else. Yeah.
Someone said number 2, how to invite people without making them feel put on the
Mm.
spot. Great comment, Amanda. Because yeah, it's true. We talk about, like, because that's the opposite of psychological safety. If we call on people, put them on the spot, it's actually the opposite. So that's a really great comment. It's like, how do you create that invitation that feels organic and people feel safe?
So from that research, just a little point there that I wanted to make, that project Aristotle at Google that I mentioned earlier, psychological safety was one of the elements, the key element, number one element. If there is no psychological safety, there is no perfect team. One of the other elements, there were a total of 5, one of the other elements was listening. And so they invite participation, the way that you listen to the person. The definition there was ostentatious listening, with that specific word, ostentatious. So that is the deep listening, listening to understand and not to respond, listening to understand where this person is coming from and make the space for that. So, yeah.
That's great. And we have a couple more comments about number 3. My face is very expressive. I give a lot away unintentionally.
You and me, Laura, twins separated at birth. We are. Yes, it's just you can't hide it. It's right there on my face. Yeah, I totally relate with that one.
I remember one professor who we were teaching and in the class said, yes, they are stupid questions. You know how they say create psychological safety, there are no stupid questions. She's like, but they are stupid questions. And I remember, I'm like, for the first time someone said the truth. I'm like, yes, they are. It's hard. It's definitely hard to master. Number 3, somebody else said, number 3, setting the stage. I want to jump right into the issue, brainstorm, problem solve. That's the thing. You can't. Unless you have that trust, unless you have that psychological safety. That's why we say in every webinar, we start with like, take time to build trust. We role modeled it today. When you jumped on the call, we didn't have our screen share. We say, hey, let's just be on the video. Let them see us, not in a small screen, in a big screen. Let them see our energy. Let us connect with them and read. Always take the time to connect with people. Don't jump into problem solving or ideas. Like, take the time. Sometimes I get on the call as a consultant with the client and it's like, yeah, we only have 60 minutes. You feel so much pressure, but I know that it's so important to connect.
Yeah.
Like, connection is so important.
And a couple of quick things for Laura and the other people that mentioned number 3 has the hardest is I don't have to agree with you necessarily as a leader, and because otherwise you corrode the trust, right? If you're agreeing with something that you internally deeply you don't agree with,
Yeah.
but you're willing to listen. So I don't have to agree with you, but I'm willing to take the time to listen and to understand where you're coming from with this idea, what you just said.
Yeah.
And then the other quick tool that I want to add in there, and Anya and I have learned this in years of coaching, is the yes and. Yes, you acknowledge, you validate, and eliminate any but that may come in mind, and to convert that but into an end. And it's amazing how a yes and, even if you really don't agree with what they said, keeps them open and receptive to understand why this is not working, right?
And it's
that
an
idea.
improv activity, right? So in our practice labs, again, like when I look at this, like a lot of these things you have to practice, you have to master, you have to actually do it to respond. And like I gave you an example yesterday, when you say, Laura, like, and maybe some of us don't know the impact we have on people. We don't know the language that we're choosing, the energy that we have. So there's something about practicing those skills. This is why it's so important. Like, the webinar is great. It's like reading a book, right? It's the mindset. We're listening to the webinars. We're like, okay, those are great tools. But how do we actually, like, what happens then? How do you go to your team when you're like, I have a team of 20. I attended 1-hour webinar. Like, are you actually ready to go and set the stage and invite and respond productively? You need to master those skills. You need to practice. And then you will be aware of your face. I'm aware of my face. Like, I'm aware when I'm approachable in trainings and when I'm not. I'm aware when my partner says, like, whoa, like, you're looking through me, like you're somewhere in another space, I'm like, I'm thinking about work as we're having dinner, you know, or like you become more aware of your impact that you have on people.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, we talked about this before the slide. Look at us. We're like ahead of the game. Whoa.
Yeah, okay. So let's transition. We left you with the unknown at the beginning with that poll of in what way trust and psychological safety are the same or they're different. They're always interchangeable. You find them very often in the same sentence. But we really wanted to make the point that there's a difference there. And Anya has the perfect story for it. So we decided that Anya was going to share the story because it just happened last week, and it's a perfect story to show the difference.
So because Angela and I, like before we prepare, we always like run through this stuff. And I said, wow, it was really interesting. We have a group, like it's a support group for consultants where we bring different issues. We talk every 2 weeks. We have this like an hour and a half call. And I told her, you know, it's interesting because in that group, I have trust with certain individuals, but because I don't have trust with everybody, I don't have psychological safety. So the way we see it, like, I don't feel safe to say everything I want to say. I'm like, I could say those things to this, like 4 people, but not these 3 people. So as a group, I don't have psychological safety, but I do have trust with individuals. And that is the biggest difference. What is psychological safety and what is trust? Trust is what you build with individuals. Psychological safety is a safe environment you have as a group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about trust and what with the book of trust and Brené
Yeah,
Brown?
we love this definition, this quote. There's so much in there because trust is a choice, and we all understand that. And also is the risk that you take, and you make it for something to make vulnerable for somebody else, right? For somebody else's actions, for somebody else help, and so really it includes all that we believe in as is a moment of vulnerability. Which in my mind reminds me of a moment of courage, right? Of that bravery of taking the risk and giving myself the trust. We're also very passionate with metaphors, and the metaphor that we borrowed by Brené Brown is this idea of a marbles jar. You know, there's these marbles, and every little marble goes into the jar with little moments of trust, because that individuality of trust with the other person is really built over time. And in a work environment, we know how hard it is, right? Because a lot of times you just take the ownership of that team, the responsibility of that team. So you don't have years to build trust. And so how do you build trust from the get-go? Yeah.
And what I love about a marble jar also that you also take away marbles. There's some actions that add marbles, but there's some actions that take away marbles. It's like the comment you made in the meeting when you shared something that was not yours to share. I will definitely take a marble out of my jar. And I always think like it's so hard to put them in and it's so easy to take them out. And for you as a leader, also to think like, okay, on my team, like what adds marbles to my jar and what takes them away? Like to really identify what are some actions and behaviors. And I love, Angela, how you said yes. And you said, it's like, it's those moments of trust. And moments are little. It's not like I either trust this person or don't trust this person. This person knows about like that my mom's been sick and they asked me. I know Angela's parents were in Italy and asking Angela, like, how are your parents in Italy? How are they doing? It's those little moments that build up. You remember that somebody's son had a birthday or they got accepted into college. It's like I shared something with you and you remembered. Like you listen to me. I trust you that you, like, I matter to you and you listen to me. Those are little moments by moment by moment.
I'm curious to know, how do they know? So if we can go to the next question, how do you know when you have someone's trust? And you can pick that person, right? It could be in your personal life or it could be at work. We always like to keep it more for, in a business conversation, but it could be anything. How do you know you have that person's trust?
And we know it's a powerful question, so we'll give you some time to think about it. It's
Yeah.
a really big question. Mm, I love some of the answers are starting to come in.
They feel comfortable coming to you. Yeah. They're supported. They know you support them. Yeah.
They feel safe to share their vulnerability with you. They're vulnerable and show you their true colors. Here's one thing I want to say. I keep putting them in the chat. Vulnerability and trust, right? We always talk about like what is, and there's this myth that I need to have your trust in order to be vulnerable. I need to trust you first. But what the research says that it's actually I need like it's both and. It's like I need to be vulnerable to build trust, and I need trust to be vulnerable. And we go back and forth. It's like, it's interesting because for me to build trust, the very first thing I look in for you is your vulnerability, but it's the last thing I want to show in myself. So it's like, it's that, right? The myth of trust and vulnerability. I love that you guys are bringing it up.
Yeah, our HR partners on the webinar, people go to them for and trust their knowledge and trust their wisdom, right? They go there with concerns and not just, and so that's the moment to where you really can check, is there connection with this person, or is just, the question and answer, right? It's just on demand, and then off they go with your pearl of wisdom. Those are the moments where you understand, is there just an informational question, or really this person trusts what I have to say?
And listening, right, guys? Listening for more than words, listening to their body language, listening to what is not being said, listening how are they phrasing the questions. I think as a coach, we've been trained, right, with the coaching skills to listen for emotions behind it, to listen for what is not being said. That's how, do they trust me? Like if I see that they're really frustrated and upset, but they're acting very professionally, it's also a sign for me they don't feel safe enough to really talk about their frustration. They disagree with me and we discuss honestly. They're confident disagreeing with me and acting independently on my behalf. Angela, exactly. HR shifts from being transactional to supportive and collaborative when there is trust. Totally.
Yeah. Because you don't want a person to walk away and doubt what you told them, right? Absolutely, Amanda. You want that complete trust with that person, with all the confidentiality and everything that you guys are masters on.
Yeah, I see again, like willing to be vulnerable, talk about real things, like how much we're all craving to just be like real with each other. So let's move on to, so what creates trust and what corrodes trust, right? One of the things, listening. Angela mentioned this before. Deeply listening, not to respond, but to understand, to be human and open yourself up to like, what are the challenges? Staying curious, being honest, keeping confidence. Like when you hear somebody say, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but don't say this. If you know you're not supposed to say this, and that's how you get to stop those. Like, I know I don't want to gossip, but I don't want to talk about this person, but like keeping confidence is huge. So, and what corrode trust? Do you want to talk, Angela, a little bit about corrosion?
Yeah, like we said, the marble jar, it's very easy to take those marbles out of the jar also, right? Very quickly out, actually. And so judgment definitely comes, plays a part in that. And when, you judge it because it's your own perspective, is your own opinion, there's an element of self-orientation in trust that plays into the equation of trust. The more I'm self-oriented, the more I think about myself, the least trust I have from the other person. unsolicited advice. Oh man, I catch myself all the time. If you're a parent, right, you know what that means. And so even you see how these are really skills to have in all aspects of life. Interrupting. How many times, and especially hard, very hard right now in this virtual all on video thing, it's very easy to interrupt, to talk from one another, and those are those little things that really can break the trust for that person or for the team. This goes both ways. And I have the chat thing, so I can't read the last one, so Anya, so I'll leave that to you.
Sharing outside the team
Oh,
meeting,
yeah.
right? We call it like a meeting after the meeting. It's like there was a meeting, everybody's like, yeah, totally, we can do this in 4 weeks. And then there's a meeting after the meeting where people actually say, it's impossible. We don't have the resources, we don't have the budget, but nobody said anything in the meeting. And to interrupting, Angela, I want to make it okay that you will do this, you will interrupt. To circle back to the person and say, hey, like I noticed I was really like, I interrupted you 3 times yesterday. I'm sorry, this was not my intention. And I really apologize. So it's like, instead of this person going off the meeting, creating assumptions and stories, how they are disrespected, their opinion doesn't matter. As a leader, we say, leaders mess up and leaders clean up the mess. If you created some mess, go clean it up. That's what builds trust. I can't tell you how many times I told my kids, like, I'm really sorry. I'm really not proud how I handled yesterday, and I'm going to try to do it better. Like circling back to people and fixing it and cleaning it up is really important.
Yeah.
So this is one of the last questions. We will have time for Q&A, guys. I want you to stay on the call. I'll stay with you. One of the things I want to say, if people on your team felt safe to admit mistakes, speak up, share their wacky ideas, what could they do that they're not able to do today?
Yeah. It's kind of like, what is the untapped realm
Potential.
of possibilities, of potential that could be unleashed with having the perfect team, with psychological safety, with building that trust.
And also for you as a leader, like if you had psychological safety to fail, to mess up, to say something, like what would be different? What could you do as a team?
A story that, while they think about their case, a story that I just recently I was involved as the consultant of a research team of high tech company. It's so they come together, and these are all PhDs. These are the scientists, the experts in the new technologies, and when you bring them together, it's so evident that psychological safety is not there, because in an academic world, my success is what I care about, and if I succeed, that you don't succeed, and that's what I'm looking for. And so it was really interesting when you create that psychological safety, you unleash that potential, they trust each other, they expect for others to go against their ideas, and then they think of something even better. It's amazing, the potential. It's a whole new team.
And just people can get finally creative. Instead of feeling like they need to protect themselves, they can unleash to create ideas. I love that. There's some great answers in the chat. Great ideas would be elevated to exec team more often. Yeah, totally. We have had to be very creative with COVID-19. We're basically all working from home. I think people feel safer. We have solved many issues and workarounds during this time. I think this pandemic has shown us we have to work differently. Yes, Catherine. And hopefully, everybody's saying, I don't want to go back to the way things were. Like it's such a great opportunity right now to build trust, to build psychological safety, to tap into our humanity and collective challenges with like parenting and technologies, and it's all over the world. For you as a leader, COVID gave you an excuse to get more personal with people and really ask them, like, how are you handling this? How are you doing? I see Laura says, Sharon, learn from mistakes together, talk about the issues, come up with an alternative way to move forward. Exactly. How do we learn from our mistakes, right? And this is what they've also shown. What do employees value the most? And it was progress. It's not that we don't make mistakes. It's actually very interesting research, and I can find it for, I think it was a TED Talk where a woman shared that when they did research on the teams with psychological safety actually had more mistakes. They made more mistakes. And then when they started actually investigating, it's not that they had more mistakes. They were willing to admit more mistakes and learn from them and move forward and progress forward all the time. So thank you guys. And again, like, keep them comment. We're in the chat. I think we lost Angela. I'll check in because of the technological maybe technology is playing again. See, this is the vulnerability moment. It's like, where's Angela? Like, I don't see her face anymore. But we talked a little bit about 3 stages, right? One is a mindset. It's like shifting the mindset to seeing the value, and the language we're sharing with you, I hope has helped you today. What is vulnerability? What is psychological safety? What is trust? How do I build trust? And it's ongoing process. It's never just like once and done. But what do you do now? How often do we go to conferences, we attend classes and webinars, and then we are in the space of like, what do we now do? How do we practice those skills? There are 3 elements. There's a mindset, there's a tool set, and there's a skill set. We have a mindset. We see the value of this. We have tools. The one thing, we need to master the skills. I really want to invite you guys to create your own teams, find allies. We would love to come and work with your team. If you have a smaller team, larger team, we like to keep it intimate. Invite me and Angela to come and work with your team. Team of executives, team of leaders, team of HR people, so we can help you. What is the language? How can we create shared language? Who are the allies that believe in this work, that believe how important it is to create trust and psychological safety? Go listen to the previous 2 webinars. One was on coaching skills, and it was all about like, how do you create trust one-on-one? Remember how we said you create it one-on-one, and then when you have trust with one-on-one and you have a group of people, it's so much easier to create psychological safety because each individual feels like she's got my back or he has my back. Even if I say something that is unconventional or I disagree with somebody, I know that my manager, my boss has my back. How often and how amazing like it is to have that kind of a manager and a boss where you feel like I can share ideas. I don't know yet. It's not fully developed, but here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we think we might try. It's such a gift to be able to have those relationships at work. The practice skills, we usually say it's about 2 hours where we're going to dive deeper into the skills and let you practice in small breakout rooms. We divide you into small rooms. We give you language, you practice, you get feedback. Me and Angela go into each room when you're practicing, giving you insights and feedback. Here's the language. Here's what we want you to try. Here's like when this shows up, here's what you do to really help you master those skills so you can feel more comfortable. Go and do it with your employees. I want you guys all to know, nobody has taught us the skills. We don't know the skills. We don't know how to do this. Nobody. It's like emotional intelligence. We didn't learn that in school. When we were promoted, right? We were promoted to be a leader because we did something well. We did something well for individual performance. And now we have this team, especially during pandemic, that we need to talk about emotions. We need to talk about struggles and challenges, and they're different personality types. That's another thing. It's like we can't do a webinar because it's not the same. Lawyers will have different, depending on your customers, depending on your industry, depending on your challenges and personality types. Who is on your team? We talk about extroverts and introverts. Does it really matter? And the short answer is no, it doesn't matter. We like to say, oh, they're just shy, they're just an introvert. Let me tell you, that is not true. Even introverts, when created the safe space and environment, will speak up and will have a lot of insight. Implementation plan and accountability. How can you create accountability with someone to say, hey, I am committing to creating trust with these 3 people? on my team. I feel like this is the time right now, and I'm telling you, it is the perfect time. It's the most challenging time, but it's the perfect time to create trust and psychological safety. So I'm gonna stop talking, and I wanna, if somebody has any questions, thank you so much for participation. Thank you for engagement. I love doing these webinars with WorkTango. I know Terry will follow up with you with the recording, and she will also give you my email and a way to connect with me. If you're struggling, you want to jump on a call and be like, hey, here's my team, here are my challenges, where do I even start? I want to extend that invitation to you, and you can connect through WorkTango with me, and maybe we can have a more of a consult call to how do you start, where do you go, who is your team, like what is the industry. I think it's so important to start building that. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for all your questions and your chat. And if you have any more questions about any of the tools or trust, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to respond as everybody's dropping out. Thank you guys. Thank you for giving us opportunity to talk about what we're so passionate about and love doing this work. And there's Terry.
Anya.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to add something. I don't know how WorkTango. I know you will be sending an email, and if they have different client relationship managers or contacts.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be following up with the recording and some information about the upcoming webinars and how to get some practice within your own organization. So we'll send that to you, and you can reach out to anybody at WorkTango for more information on it. We'll be happy to provide
and
that.
If you're on a webinar, or you're listening to a recording, and you have something that you're like, oh, damn, I wish there was a webinar on this topic, send it to WorkTango. We'll create one. We customize content all the time. We create trainings. If there's a webinar that you would love to attend, give them an idea, and we will see how we can make it happen for you guys.
Absolutely. That's wonderful.
I don't see any questions, which is great. That means like things are clear. People are walking away. But if you do have, I will stay just for a couple more minutes until 1 o'clock. And you can also message me privately, but I can respond to everybody. Thank you.
Our topic for next week, I'm going to cue that up.
Yeah.
See what.
It's on emotional intelligence. Right?
Yes.
On triggers and recovery tools. It's going to be really, really cool. How do we as leaders get triggered, and how do we recover so we don't emotionally leave the company? It's like my body is here, but I checked out. So it's going to be really cool if you guys can attend one on emotional intelligence and giving you language to speak about emotions. Okay, sounds good. I guess we're done. I don't see any questions.
So. Thanks again, Anya. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, WorkTango.
All right.
See you next week. Bye.